Gojo vs Sukuna is entertaining to read, and I appreciate the complexities of the power system, but man is this confusing. I'm gonna go over the fight and point out the good and the bad. The fight starts in chapter 223. At the start, Gojo teams up for a super attack, but I want to analyze what has been added to the system of curse techniques. The chapter says that sorcerers use hand signs, incantations, dances, and music to use their powers, and great sorcerers can admit this. Hand signs have been shown throughout JJK, and people have theorized what they meant, but nothing is ever explained, which bothers me. Some articles reveal that the hand signs, or mudras, for domain expansions are real and have some poetic association with the Buddhist deity. What is the actual function of the mudra? I don't know, and I don't think it's explained. But I do like how stronger sorcerers can emit these signs. It reminds me of what Naruto did. However, for the other three types of build-ups, I don't remember them ever being shown. This is the first time I've seen incantations, dance, or music used to set up a power. I like how deciding to keep all of these in makes the attack stronger. Enough world building, let's get to the fight. After a dramatic setup, Gojo uses his ultimate attack, Hollow Purple, and it does little damage. In 224, the two engage in CQC. Gojo also uses telekinesis in this phase, and Sukuna uses Dismantle. Gojo realizes that Sukuna is able to touch him. In 225, it is revealed that Sukuna's learned Domain Amplification, power that Joko and Hanami introduced in the Shibuya arc. It allows the sorcerer to negate the opponent's power by enveloping themselves in their domain. Instead of having your own curse in the domain, you suck in your opponent's curse into your domain. That's a great strategy on Sukuna's part, because Gojo would otherwise be untouchable. These kinds of trade-offs and manipulation of rules will become widespread in this fight. Recap of 223 and 224. Sukuna can take purple by sacrificing his hands and healing up. Sukuna can also use DA to touch Gojo. Then, the domain battle starts. Normally, domain expansion is used by creating a barrier and putting your curse inside of it. This is described as painting on a canvas. Sukuna is so elite that he doesn't need to create a barrier and can just put his curse out in the air. This is described as painting on air. Inside a barrier, when two domains clash, the sure hit is cancelled on both sides and it's a stalemate. But that's only on the inside. Since Sukuna's domain has no inside or outside, his domain can reach outside of Gojo's barrier and attack from the outside, which domains are weak to. This is really cool tactical thinking, but the way the exposition is delivered is mixed. There are some nuggets of gold, like painting on air, but so many characters are talking, yet adding nothing to the conversation. It's inefficient. Gojo's domain is broken and he takes damage. Gojo starts getting chopped up, but he has the reverse curse technique, which allows him to quickly heal up all the wounds he gets. The two engage in CQC before Gojo counters the sure hits with simple domain, which was established long ago as a counter to domain sure hits. Apparently, using reverse and normal curses at the same time is extremely difficult, so is fighting while healing at full throttle. Another display of the level of sorcery here. Gojo's simple domain has a time limit, and he takes more slashes before recasting it, but he doesn't heal. It looks like he's about to die, but then he uses his reverse technique, Red. When you use a domain, your curse technique, or special move, there's a cooldown, which is why Gojo was unable to use his powers, but here it's revealed that he was using reverse curse technique, or healing, to restore his special move, which is why he wasn't healing his body. Red does major damage to Sukuna. I had some questions when I first read this, and the spectators sorta addressed this. Earlier in the manga, Gojo explained cursed energy as electricity and special moves as an appliance. Here, Yuta brings up a similar metaphor and uses a machine. He says that healing is like fixing a broken machine, but you can't fix an overheated machine, you just have to let it cool down. This is basically the argument I was making in the gap between these chapters. Using reverse on your own body undoes any recently received damage. Using reverse on your special move reverses the effects of the move. Using reverse on a cooldown should make the cooldown longer. The only way this could make sense to me is if you reverse your special move to the state it was at before it overheated, but that's not how they explain it. They say Gojo is speeding up his cooldown. If he was actually reversing it to before it overheated, the move would immediately become active. How does the story explain this discrepancy? Yuta says, maybe I was wrong. That's it. That is disappointing. RCT worked consistently, and when it starts working a different way, the characters just accept it, basically telling us to shut up and deal with it. Recap of 225 and 226. Sukuna can use a barrierless domain to destroy his opponent's domains. Gojo can use RCT to survive Malevolent Shrine. Gojo can counter domains with simple domain. Gojo can use RCT on his CT, which doesn't make sense. The next phase starts when Gojo opens his domain a second time, in 227, but this time, he reverses the internal and external conditions. This somehow makes it strong against external attacks. We need to dissect this. First, changing conditions like this is another difficult feat that shows Gojo's prowess, so that's cool. I like how the story plays with the rules, but what rules are these? These are never made clear, even in 228. The raw scans seemed like they might have given some examples of conditions, but the official scans didn't. Volume and creation speed are separate from conditions, so what specifically did Gojo switch in order to make his domain stronger on the outside? It's not explained or even visually conveyed. One of my friends created theories as to what it was, but it was all speculation. A good fight shouldn't force the audience to make headcanons so the fight can make sense. I like the attempt, but the execution is sloppy. Back in 227, Sukuna used his own domain alongside domain amplification, another difficult feat. My theory for the external switch was that Gojo put his domain effects and sure hit on the outside of the barrier. How would that make the domain stronger on the outside? I don't know, but I could let it slide. The problem is that shouldn't that mean that everyone outside the domain will get hit by the endless information? All the spectators are fine, or is there a range for the sure hit when he flips it to the outside? So many unanswered questions. But ultimately, this theory is just a theory. If it were true, I think it would have been explicitly stated, like all the other plays in the fight. Then Sukuna outmaneuvers Gojo by trading his sure hit for increased power outside of Gojo's domain, and touches Gojo so that he isn't hit by the limitless information. This right here tells us that Gojo did not put his sure hit on the outside, eliminating my theory. The trade-off for power is cool, but Unlimited Void's weakness is a Deus Ex Machina. It was never explicitly shown before that anyone Gojo touches in his domain is unaffected. The proof that the wiki has is when he touched Jogo in his domain in chapter 15, but this is such a reach. If you actually read the chapter, there are holes in this argument. 1. When Gojo activated UV, he wasn't touching Yuji, yet Yuji wasn't affected. I don't know why. 2. When Gojo touched Jogo, the latter was still under the effects until Gojo said, "I'll stop here," and deactivated his DE. So this doesn't make sense. Furthermore, the reason I'm harsh on this is because UV was introduced in chapter 15. That's over 200 chapters ago. You had all this time to set up its weakness, but you didn't. So now you're making up stuff last minute. Anyway, Gojo's second domain breaks from Sukuna's trade-off and he gets chopped up, but he counters with Falling Blossom Emotion, another counter move that was properly established before. However, Sukuna's attacks are so strong that Gojo still takes damage. Gojo enters the next phase by using domain for a third time, but he makes the barrier extremely small. This is a rule manipulation I'm fine with. When it comes to characters playing with the rules of a power system, it has to be intuitive if it's not foreshadowed. It should make me go, why didn't I think of that? Or, I would have never thought of that. I shouldn't be saying, that doesn't make sense. This is intuitive. Characters can control the size of their barriers, so why can't they also shrink it? What's not intuitive is the fact that he can shrink the barrier smaller than the size of his own mass. What is the advantage of shrinking the barrier anyway? Recap of 277. Gojo can reverse the conditions of his barrier. This doesn't make sense. Sukuna can use DE and DA at the same time. Unlimited Void has a new convenient weakness. Sukuna can trade away his sure hit for more DE power. Gojo can counter DE with Falling Blossom Emotion. Gojo can make his DE tiny. What does it do? I don't know. In 228, Mei theorizes that Gojo wanted to see if he could cover the effective range of Sukuna's domain with a large enough barrier. I have no idea what this explains. Shouldn't he be increasing the size of his barrier if that was the case? Sukuna responds by also shrinking his domain to increase his special move's power. This allows him to break the barrier, but Gojo damages him to the point where he couldn't hold his own domain, ending Malevolent Shrine for the first time. This damage was done off screen, so I'm still confused. What did shrinking the barrier have to do with this? What attack did Gojo use to hurt Sukuna enough? Red didn't do the trick before, so was it Hollow Purple? We don't know. The two enter CQC again before Maharaga's halo appears at the end of the chapter. 228 recap. Sukuna can also shrink his DE. Gojo somehow harms Sukuna. Maharaga's halo appears. In 229, both expand domains again. This means that Sukuna learned how to use RCT to heal his burnt out technique. Kusakabe says that Sukuna will destroy Gojo's domain in 3 minutes. Why can't he destroy it immediately? In round 1, he used the barrierless domain to win. In round 2, he countered the switch by shutting down his sure hit for more power. In round 3, he shrunk his barrier like Gojo and won somehow. Gojo has never found a way to stop his domain from breaking, so why would Sukuna need extra time this time? In domain round 4, the two throw hands and both domains break at the same time, somehow. It seems like the author has given up on explaining. Coming out of the domain, Gojo was uninjured while Sukuna was hurt. This means that Gojo's the better fighter when both are on even footing. I'm cool with that. Then round 5 happens. Both activate domains, but Sukuna was a tiny bit late. Repairing CT lags depending on how much damage you've taken. Because he had more damage, he was a fraction of a second late, allowing Unlimited Void to strike him. This new rule came out of nowhere, but the concept on its own is fine. Malevolent Shrine falls, but Maharaga rises. Maharaga destroys UV because he's adapted to Gojo's domain. That ends chapter 229. 229 recap. Sukuna can use RCT to heal his CT. Gojo is the better CQC fighter. Healing CT has lag if you've taken damage. UV hits Sukuna. Maharaga destroys UV because he's adapted to Gojo's DE. In 230, the characters start using Magibabble. The characters just start saying stuff that doesn't even make sense, at least to me. Let me try to explain this. Sukuna took the hit from UV 5 times and bore the burden of adaptation. This is the first time I'm hearing about the burden of adaptation. I don't know what it means. Apparently, instead of Sukuna bearing the burden, he put it on Megumi's soul, which is inside of him. I don't even know what this burden is, but changing the target to someone else's soul doesn't sound intuitive. So while Sukuna didn't use amplification, he used 10 shadows to have Megumi shoulder the burden. How does that work? They're just making up rules. And then Gojo says that Sukuna only let him shoulder the process of adaptation and not the results. Huh? Bro, what are they saying? First burden of adaptation, now process of adaptation and results. They're introducing so many new terms and explaining none of them. All of these rules are coming out of nowhere too. A good power system sets up the rules before using them. This gets the same treatment as the UV nonsense. 10 shadows existed since chapter 1 and Maharaga since chapter 117. We saw his adaptation when he fought Sukuna then. That's 100 chapters ago. In 100 chapters, Gege couldn't have set up the rules for Maharaga. Apparently, neither Sukuna or Megumi's soul have adapted to UV, meaning that Sukuna would have to use Maharaga again if Gojo used UV. But Gojo can't use his domain, and his nose bleeds when he tries. This is why his nose was bleeding earlier. Gojo repaired his technique too much, which pushed him too far. CTs are in the prefrontal cortex, so Gojo was destroying his brain with cursed energy and healing it with reverse cursed energy.
Man, quit fucking playing on me, bro.
They are making stuff up on the spot. None of this was explained before. Apparently, healing your brain is difficult. None of this really explains why Gojo would die by using his domain a 6th time though. This is also sloppy writing because curse techniques have existed for over 200 chapters. There was plenty of time to set this up instead of bringing it up just as it's relevant. It sounds like he's making stuff up on the spot. Sukuna tries to use his domain, but he starts bleeding out too. The sub 10 seconds that UV struck Sukuna before damaged his brain enough to stop him from using domain as well. The two start boxing, and that ends 2:30. This fight is slowly deteriorating in quality. 2:30 recap. Sukuna put the burden of adaptation on Megumi's soul. Process of adaptation comes up. Too much RCT on CT destroys the brain. Sukuna being hit by UV also damaged his brain. Neither can use DE. In chapter 231, Kusakabe explains that Gojo uses blue to boost his fists with reinforced curse energy. That doesn't make sense. Blue is convergence, red is divergence. Blue absorbs, red repels. How would using blue at the moment of impact increases damage? Shouldn't it be red? If you used it before the moment of impact to suck you into the punch, that could make sense, but that's not what he said. And then Kusakabe gives up on explaining the nonsense that will happen in this fight. The two continue fighting normally. Someone says that after an attack hits Maharaga, the wheel turns and he adapts. I assume that since Sukuna has the wheel above his head, he substitutes for Maharaga. The wheel turns once. We don't know if that means he's adapted yet. More rules are added. When Sukuna touches Gojo, his wheel darkens, meaning that the adaptation was interrupted. Sukuna can still use amplification because only the part of his brain connected to the barriers was damaged. Meanwhile, Gojo isn't actually using any text outside of lapse to stop Sukuna from adapting. Another rule is added. Gojo's Limitless is a tech that requires the wheel to turn multiple times. Why? Because doing the impossible is normal for those two.
Cut the shit the fuck off!
Get this nonsense out of here. Apparently, the wheel has turned 4 times and it only needs 3 more turns. How does Gojo know this? Gojo plans to beat him before then, and the chapter ends. How is he gonna beat him though? He used every trick in the book and even pulled out some new ones out of his butt. 231 recap. Maharaga's adaptation isn't explained. The wheel has to turn multiple times to adapt to Limitless. Maharaga only has a few turns left. 232. Sukuna gets a second spin, and Kusakabe says there are 2 more spins left. After some more combat, there's a 3rd spin. The spectators offer 2 explanations for adaptation. Time or repetition, but we don't get an answer. It could be either. Just great. Gojo has only been using blue and plans to surprise his enemy with red. This is another confusing part. Sukuna gets hit with red and is banged up a little. Apparently, he used amplification to minimize the damage. DA neutralizes CTs and domains. So why did he still get damaged if he used DA on a CT attack? The monologue says he can't fully negate blue or reverse red, but why? Isn't that the whole point of DA? Using DA like this was cool though. And then the red attack comes to hit Sukuna from behind. It literally just hit him and he blocked it. How did it spin the block and hit him again?
L excuses, right hand on the Bible. God can strike me down if I'm lying. That mother is cheating! Take my word!
It's not like it went through him, and if it for some reason didn't disappear after the first hit, how did Sukuna not see it go past him?
Make no sense, make no sense,
Gojo hits Sukuna with a black flash, blacking him out, and then Maharaga comes to play. 232 recap. Maharaga has 2 spins left. The adaptation still isn't explained. Red can double dip apparently. Gojo can use black flash. 233. Gojo's healing is slowing down. Both Gojo and Sukuna are getting weaker. Sukuna is hiding in the shadows while Maharaga fights. Sukuna uses piercing blood with water around him. This is explained by him using the power of Max Elephant, which can spit water without summoning it. How can he do that? This would have been really cool if it made sense. We just keep breaking rules for fun. Then Sukuna summons Merged Beast Akito. In a later chapter, this is explained to be the combo of the Nue, deer, snake, and tiger. Nue has flight and electricity. The deer can heal with RCT. Snake has nothing unique, and the tiger has never been shown. Now it's the 3v1 like Hiruzen vs Orochimaru. They start boxing and Mahoraga is barely harmed by red. Gojo says that this is because he hit Sukuna before, meaning that Mahoraga might adapt gradually. Gojo plans to end Mahoraga with purple. 233 recap. Gojo and Sukuna are getting weaker. Sukuna can use the power of shadows without summoning them. He can also use piercing blood. Sukuna can create Akito. Mahoraga might adapt in gradations. 234. Gojo explains Akito's combo after he heals. Sukuna hides and it goes back to a 2v2. Gojo's plan is to kill Akito first. Sukuna explains that since they are weaker now and they're in close range, if Gojo uses purple on him, it will be fatal. Mahoraga gets flying slices like Sukuna's dismantle. Gojo uses blue on Akito and she implodes, removing her from the fight. 234 recap. Mahoraga got dismantled and Akito died. 235. Gojo gets 2 more black flashes in on his ops and then starts chanting. The narrator does a great job at hyping up the fight, but this spark came out of nowhere. We're 200 chapters deep and you're just mentioning this as soon as it's important is all to say that Gojo almost outplayed Sukuna. His blue from the last chapter is still active and Gojo shoots a red to combine with it. Mahoraga goes to intercept it. He's already adapted to blue. Wait, earlier Gojo said Mahoraga adapted to red when he shot him with it. Here, the narrator says that he's adapted to blue. Would that not mean that he should be adapted to purple? Or is purple separate? Anyway, Gojo uses the attractive force of blue to get to it faster. That was clean, I can't lie. Mahoraga's adaptation backfired. Reminds me of one of the last fights in Steel Ball Run. Mahoraga gets pounded, so Sukuna tries to destroy red with piercing blood. Then Gojo hacks the game again. He chants and the incantation restored the output of blue, allowing it to attract and swallow Sukuna's attack.
You can't keep getting away with it!
What the hell is this? It was never foreshadowed that chanting could add special effects to an ability. Blue continuing to exist after attacking is fine for me, that's intuitive. But increasing the attractive field through a chant after already attacking is not intuitive. In case you forgot, Mahoraga was able to dodge blue and let it pass him just in the last chapter. Blue only imploded what it touched, but now is sucking in nearby projectiles. If they foreshadowed this wouldn't be a problem. And don't try to use the first purple as proof. All he did was fire stronger purple. He didn't have it sit there in the air and reactivate. And we're not done. The red and blue combine for purple, and Gojo suicide bombs himself along with Sukuna and Mahoraga. Mahoraga appears to be dead, Sukuna is messed up, and Gojo heals himself. He took less damage because it was his own cursed energy. Kusakabe says that Gojo regained his RCT output through the black flashes earlier. Since when was this a thing? That's the end of 235. Then there's a 2-week break. There is so much nonsense in this fight. I hate the amount of Deus Ex Machinas. Earlier in the fight, characters were using foreshadowed moves like Simple Domain and Falling Blossom, or using intuitive new moves. But later, so many powers just come out of nowhere, and a few of them don't even make sense. It's much more frustrating when these are powers that have existed for hundreds of chapters and could have been set up beforehand. Gojo is the biggest cheater. He's covered in plot armor. He's like that one kid that changes the rules whenever he's losing. And then I also hate the healing factors. It decreases the weight of nearly every attack when the characters can just heal back to full strength. The only thing that depletes is their energy, but it's not like there's an energy bar letting us know who has how much. The writer just decides willy-nilly, which normally isn't a problem, but it is here because that's the only true measurement of who's winning, who has enough MP to regenerate from the last fatal wound. All of the fatal attacks are just hype fuel and shock value. Oh no, Gojo got his neck cut. Gojo's getting chopped up. It's so gritty. Gojo got his arm cut off. It looks cool for a second, but none of it matters when you know the character can just heal back in the next chapter or the same chapter. This fight has some good moments and good plays, but it's played with BS. In conclusion, this fight so far is not good. If you want examples of good Jujutsu fights, there's Yuji and Megumi vs Jiro, Yuji vs Chozo, Yuji and Todo vs Mahito, Megumi vs Reggie, Kinji vs Kashimo, and Yuta vs Ryu vs Uro. All of them are better than this. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and help me revolutionize the manga industry by buying my manga and spreading the word. All important links will be in the description.